Hi everybody, I'm a really big fan of the Marx Brothers, a comedy team from the early 20th century. I'm also a really big fan of Games Workshop products. So I thought, what if I started combining them together? So this is a project I've been working on for a couple days now. I only decided to start it filming recently. My main weapon has been this stuff here, Tamiya epoxy putty. It's a two-part epoxy putty, kind of like green stuff. This is what I found when I went looking for green stuff. One's kind of minty and the other's white. It mixes together, you mix equal parts. So here in the first section of this video, I'm working on Chico. His right hand is the first project I gotta do. Chico's got his very distinct way that he would hold his fingers as he would play piano. I'll pop in a photo here for you. So it's a pretty iconic hand position, not only in his case, but so many people can do a finger gun. So if you want to do it, this might be some good reference. So first thing I did was that I carved down his finger. I hadn't thought to film this yet, but I carved down his finger because what had been there was his power maul. So I clipped off the maul actually. First the top half and the little pommel, and then I carved out his finger. You'll be able to see the carving. Right here I'm mixing my Tamiya, and as an armature I used a little piece of toothpick. A brilliant piece of equipment. If you're doing any modeling like this, absolutely recommend having toothpicks all over the place. They're a great tool in so many different uses. So I'm getting everything super wet here so that the putty doesn't stick to anything. Center stage for this part of the video here is his piano, which has been a big learning curve for me. I definitely screwed up a lot. One of the biggest problems with Tamiya epoxy putty is that the white stuff element is so sticky. It sticks to the plastic so much, but even when everything's wet, I still have a lot of trouble. But live and learn, and it happens. But I wanted to make I should have made a bigger armature. I went with just the Brute Shield, is the piece name. It's a smaller shield for his arm. I should have started with a larger armature, maybe the larger shield, and cutting it to size, or maybe building a small wire armature. But I didn't really want to cut the larger shield, because now I have that part to spare, right? I'd rather build the new piece. So for the hand here, I'm working in such a small size. It was a lot of trouble getting these pieces in. The toothpick armature was so helpful at first. I'm not sure if you guys will be able to see any of the green peeking through. It was a little green toothpick. But my goal here was I had started cleaning up the molding I had done with my knife, and I'd started lifting pieces away too much material away. So I actually wanted to correct that and clean out those cuts. So I'm doing the unsafe thing, but I'm not pressing very hard, so it's okay. Life will be fine. Also, here's the other secret weapon. I learned this from the Modern Synthesist YouTube channel. Check him out. He's a sculptor. He does a lot of green stuff work. Absolutely amazing sculptor. He suggests using hand cream on all your tools instead of water. It works amazingly because it stays on there for longer. This tool, sadly, I'm not going to recommend. I don't know what it's called, and I don't know the company. I haven't really fallen in love with the tool yet, so I'm not going to push that or recommend you guys get that. But yeah, so it's a slow going process here of me poking. So I'll cut ahead to something. So here I'm carving back and shaving the Tamiya epoxy putty from between his knuckles. The problem I'm having here is that material was breaking up, I think because of the hand cream, and I was pushing a little too hard, and it was pushing between all the little spaces in his hand. Happy little accident, as Bob Ross used to say. This knife I have here, the tip bent back a little bit for some reason on an earlier cut, and so I got this nice little hook back tip that I use. I'm also doing the wonderfully safe thing of all the material that I clip off with my knife, I immediately rub off onto my thumb. I figured here, why not use a tool that I have, right? So even though the knife is a little bent and maybe I shouldn't be using it in all contexts, this one where I'm just lightly scraping it back and forth in this very small place, it's a totally great use for this tool. So yeah, I think if you have a tool or you can make it, consider that as an option rather than trying to buy the product, because a lot of hobby stuff is so expensive and hard to find. So after a while, I felt comfortable with how done the finger was. I kind of massaged along the shaft of it for a while to make sure it was the correct kind of texture, lumpy enough to look like a finger. The thumb gave me a little bit of trouble. Rather than having any kind of aperture, I just created a little cone of the putty and stuck it on top and tried to shape it. It looks pretty good, but I don't know how to make it better. Practice and sculpting talent, I guess, would improve it. So after I'm done all that, I'm dry fitting it to the Mini to make sure that that I can access the whole hand and arm while I'm painting it. I've got it pinned, actually. I also have the piano pinned. The pins, the point of the pins are so that I can hold it and paint without touching the paint job. Because well, if I touch the paint job, it'll damage it, and so I pin it in a place where after I glue it, it stays hidden. I've got super glue here, Gorilla Glue. I mainly buy Gorilla Glue because of the beautiful, wonderful, perfect ads. That's just a plug for their advertising campaign. Also a great glue. But anyway, I get the glue ready and get it into place. Now with his right arm done, I can work on his left arm, which is holding the piano, the basis of which is the brute shield. I've learned a lot from working on just this piece. It has been an absolute wonder, and I'm not even very far done. So it's meant to be kind of a grand piano. Technically it's facing backwards, I guess, or it's, I don't know, left-handed. So I'm bulking out the piano to essentially be the wrong way, but that's okay with me. So I still want the piano to go way down his legs. It's not very far up. Oh, and I think this is when I realize it's kind of difficult to work with this thing while I have the pin there. So I actually removed this pin, so you can see how it's super glued in there. But while I'm bulking up this piano, I should have used a small armature, maybe a wire armature, and built a frame, or I think that would have been my best bet actually if I'd had some wire, some very high gauge, a 25 gauge wire, something really thin. The higher the gauge, the thinner the wire, for those who don't know. And 19 is about 1 millimeter, and that's what I've got there as the handle. So it's a little too thick for being an armature for something like this, but a 25 might definitely work. So I'm going to consider that in the future. So here I'm just blending it in. At this point, it's still very much the base structure of the piano. I'm nowhere near the top of it. So yeah, and I've got tons of this. It's not a great tool for me. So anyway, I'm just trying to blend it together so it'll kind of stick. Also, if you see, there's actually a lot of sprue debris inside the model there. The same kind of dust that's all over the board. I've put some in the model. My thinking was, why not? It both helps clean it up. It'll also act as a little bit of bulk. Normally, I wouldn't want that in on the finished product edge. But inside a body, absolutely. Yeah, absolutely. See, here's where I remove that pin. So the practice of pinning your stuff is, I'm unsure if I want to recommend that, because I'm not sure I want to tell people to go get a $20 or $30 pin vise just so that they're able to do this. I had to order mine on Amazon, not something else, or something else I'd like to not recommend. But I've got a pin vise here, and I'm drilling a hole. It's 1 millimeter, and I glue in a 1 millimeter wire so that it can act as a handle. I learned this off of Pete the Wargamer's channel. Absolutely wonderful conversion artist. And yeah, so right there I was just drilling out the hole to make sure that there's no leftover glue for when I do put a pin back in to paint. I just didn't need it in there for the current business of construction. So yeah, still working on the piano here, but I've done most of the material, and I wanted to dry fit to see how much more I want to go up and down and back and forward on this shape. I want to build a platform outwards first to get my base, and then I'm gonna try and build upwards. I'm like, for example, the keys probably not going to go much higher than it is currently, but the body will probably get way higher. Also, I comfortably think that I don't want to be able to see his face from this angle, so I do also want to raise up that curved part of the piano as well. Also, there's going to be legs on it, but we'll see how that works. Probably toothpick tips, honestly, now that I think about it. Here I am doing a no-no that I shouldn't have done, and I know I shouldn't have done it, but I did it anyway, and that's that I kept working even though I was happy with an earlier shape. So the material on the bottom of the piano right now, still very much not cured at all, and I've added more material to the top, and I'm starting to work on that curve. But as you can see, though, the bottom of it is just getting absolutely demolished by my fingers, because that's where I'm holding. It's okay in this context because I immediately can fix it, first of all, and secondly because it's not a major detail. It's just the base of the piano, and it's very much a rough piece, but I should have let it sit and cure, and like, it's okay to be very slow at this. It's hard sometimes to be as impatient as I am, but you gotta be patient, and once you got a piece in place and you're happy with where it is, let it cure before you start screwing around with the rest of the piece. So I'd love to introduce you to the star of the show. This is the one, the only, Harpo Marx. Look at that hat, look at that hair. I am so proud of this mini. That work is gorgeous, if I do say so myself. So Harpo here is in the real life, he was a major prop comic. He had all sorts of stuff. So I have been trying to come up with different ideas of different toys to give him. One that doesn't appear in this video is a little trumpet. Another that I'll be working on later is his spiked club. As you can see, I gave him a bunch of weapons. But one of his major toys that he often has in the movies that I wanted to recreate is his horn cane. He's got this full-length cane that has a horn on the end of it, like the honk honk kind, and he uses it in such brilliant comedic ways. I love the prop, so I wanted to put it on the mini somehow. So I should have just used a toothpick as a basis, and I probably will if this doesn't work. But right now, what I've done is I've rolled out a little bit of the putty into a tube, and I'm letting it sit, hopefully to cure into a single solid piece on that hand cream there. And I'll leave it overnight, see how it goes. The other piece I'm working on here is that I wanted to put little spikes on his club. There's already these little nubs on there because I think it's supposed to be kind of electrically powered or something like that. But I wanted bigger, cooler spikes, like he'd been out in the wasteland upgrading it on his own. Looking back, maybe the toothpick would have worked as well. Probably not, probably a little too big. Maybe if I had a really, really small gauged wire, I could have drilled holes through and stuck them through, kind of like a baseball bat, essentially, and and a post-apocalyptic baseball bat. What I end up doing though is I realize that I won't be able to do this. I have such a hard time putting these on that I end up finding a new product that I recently found this product online, and it was cheap, and it was in a local mom and pop shop I was ordering from because you can't go anywhere and time is hell. But I was looking at this store, and I found this great product. The store is called Fenris Workshop. It's based in Quebec for the Canadians out there. There's no customs. You don't have to order. You don't have to pay customs on green stuff orders and things like that. So that's a big plus. But I was on there and I found this product, and I'll cut to it now. So this is Battlefield Razor Wire from the Army Painter. It's great stuff. It's essentially a small little wire with another even smaller wire wrapped around it, but from even anything beyond 4 or 5 inches, it looks a spitting image of barbed wire. So I wanted to get this stuff. I didn't know what to use it for when I originally bought it, as is always true with all model stuff. But when I remembered I had it in my model box, I thought this was a great use for it. So here what I'm doing is that I've poked the wire through the little hole of a cable, I think that's what it is, in the original piece. And I'm using that as kind of a hook, essentially. And I wind the wire just a little bit around it, and then I'm winding the wire around the whole piece. And it'll turn into this barbed wire wrapped club. Far more gnarly than it was on its own. And just going back up, I wrap it back up. Fewer wraps going the upwards route. I do also forget that maybe I should have unwound it first beforehand, and I did think about potentially trying to put the whole mini through the hoop. Would not have worked. Glad I didn't do it. But yeah, I'll show you the finished product. Forgot to mention that this wire, one of the big downsides to it is that it is heinously difficult to put away. It fought me every second. I had to really get this, work hard to get this guy into the box. But yeah, small victories. So I grabbed my needle nose pliers here from my other tools box, tools that I use around the house and stuff like that. And I mention that because if you have other tools that you use for other things, consider using them in your miniature work rather than buying new tools. Because, you know, I saved $30 not buying a new pair of needle nose pliers just to work with miniatures. But yeah, just finishing up that wire there, I push it in back behind where the original wire started, and I glue it into place, and Harpo's all done. For now. He's all done for now. So yeah, that's pretty much all of it, guys. That last bit of material there ends it up on the piano to fill out more of its body. I hope you enjoyed. I hope you learned something. And yeah, sleep well, everybody.